Hey guys, so what's up? Welcome back to the TrinFx channel. I hope everybody had a great weekend, and I'm looking forward to having a great trading week this time as well. All right, last week was up and down, but it was a profitable week anyways. So I'm trying to have another profitable week this time coming up here, and we have a lot to take a look at coming up for this week of trading. All right, so as you guys know, what I like to start with is the fundamentals, looking at what we have coming up in terms of news, and then we'll take a look at the major currencies and taking a look at the heavily more in focus US dollar, the DXY, and see what sort of trading setups we can get from that. And overall, in this week, things do look pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. It looks like a couple of good setups are going to be coming our way. Clean markets overall in general, and yeah, just looking to have an overall profitable week this time around. Alright, and I'm going to discuss some of the things that I'm going to do in terms of changing my own trading strategy in order to help me increase my profitability even more, as well as mitigate, and really this is a key thing, mitigate the unnecessary losses that we do incur sometimes. Alright, so starting off real quick, what I want to start with actually is all right, some of the news events that we do have coming up, and more so the news that we have coming up from the Tuesday go down into Friday. As you know, this is a new month that we're entering, right? So August, we have NFP for the US dollar as well. So on Monday, we do have coming out CPI. Firstly, the first major news events we do have is for the euro dollar. We have CPI, core inflation, inflation rate, year over year and month over month comparisons, right? So year over year, it looks like inflation is coming down gradually for the euro area. So this would have a negative impact on the euro dollar, and we'll discuss as to why that is. And for CPI, we are expecting CPI numbers to come down, the consensus a little from the previous. So we'll have to wait and see what sort of numbers we do actually get. And this is coming out at 5 a.m. Monday morning. All right. Afterwards, we have some AD news here. All right, nothing much and major for the AD news. We have unemployment rate for the Japanese yen, so this is something I'll be paying attention to. Looks like unemployment is coming down, which is great. And we have some AD news here, home loans and the Judo Bank manufacturing PMI, right? So this is something that we could pay attention to, which may impact the AD and the sentiment on a whole, right? And one of the reasons why, and I'll continue saying this over and over, one of the reasons why I just focus on the euro area rather than any of the European countries that make up the Euro Union, right, is because the euro area takes a general outlook over all the sectors encompassing, right, the euro area or Euro Union, right? So these numbers have sort of a higher impact on the euro dollar itself, on markets on a whole, rather than looking at each individual country that makes up the euro area. So hopefully that's understandable why I don't look specifically at euro CPI for Italy or anything like that. It doesn't make much sense, right? It more so makes sense to focus on the euro area on a whole rather than doing that. So on a Tuesday, we also have RBA interest rate decision. So this is coming up at right 12:30 a.m. Okay, looking to see an increase by 25 basis points. So looking to see a slight increase on the interest rates here for the RBA. And given the current news that we do have coming from the RBA, I do think this number here is sort of like on a money optimistic side. I do think that the overall numbers for the AD RBA interest rates would remain the same as the previous, which would cause an actual downward movement against the AD dollar, but we'll have to wait and see. But overall, in terms of like my expectancy for this, I'm looking to sell at this point early on for the AD currently. Some of the things that we have coming up, unemployment rate, again for the euro area, looking to remain the same actually, right, at 6.5%. We have USD, S&P Global Manufacturing PMI, ISM Manufacturing PMI, as well as JOLTS job opening. So these are some things that you need to pay attention to, the JOLTS job opening, as well as S&P Global Manufacturing and ISM Manufacturing PMI. Those would affect indices such as US 30, NAS 100, and the S&P 500. Right? I don't trade indices, so I wouldn't really be paying attention to that. What I'll be looking at more is the Jones job openings, and I take a quick look at what Jones job openings here. You can see a summary here, right? So as of the last business day of the month in the United States, job openings are defined as all positions that are open and not filled. All right, so this comes to play with job numbers, job opportunities, and such, right? And job opportunities are included in the job openings and labor turnover survey, which is called the JOLTS job openings. It collects information from around 16,400 non-farm companies, right, including merchants and manufacturers, as well as federal, state, and municipal government agencies in all 50 states and the Districts of Columbia, right? So that's a basic summary of what the JOLTS job opening is, right? And you can see here it says a higher than expected figure should be seen as positive for the US dollar, while a lower than expected figure should be viewed as negative, right? So that's a brief summary as to what that is. And you can see here we are looking to come down in terms of the consensus compared to the previous, which will be negative for the dollar. And we really have to wait and take that sort of consensus with a grain of salt, because we are coming from quite the positive turnover on USD news from last week when we look at jobless claims and such. So this number could be kind of shrewd in terms of the consensus that they do currently have here, and the JOLTS opening may be or should be a lot better than the actual number they do have here, but we'll take a look as when that come up, right? Unemployment change for the NCD and unemployment rate, unemployment change for the NCD also that we do have coming up, and that is looking to be unemployment rate increasing, which is not great, and the employment change decreasing. All right, so this is the thing. Employment change is something you want to see an increase on. Unemployment rate, you want to see a decrease, right? And it kind of speaks for itself when it comes to unemployment. A number of people unemployed but actively looking for or seeking a job, right? But it doesn't have any out there. So with that being said, unemployment rate is something you want to see being lower rather than climbing up. And the BOJ monetary policy meeting minutes for the Japanese yen. So this is also something to pay attention to. Right, Wednesday, consumer confidence for the Swiss franc. This would be sort of a highly impactful sort of news event, especially taking a look at what I'll be looking at, such as AD/CHF, and I'm focusing more so on the risk on, risk off assets, AD more so in particular rather than anything else. I'm going to try sticking towards like one traded pair or one major pair and see how that plays for us in this coming week. All right, and my overall goal is to make around 5% a week, totaling 20% a month, which is above average, way above average. If you can consistently do 20% a month by the end of the year, that's over 240%, right? For just trading for the year, which is really great if you're able to do that on a consistent basis. Here in the TrinFx VIP, we have done this multiple times. Sometimes in a month, we make over 65%, and that's not even capped. You could take a look at some of the older videos and trading recaps and stuff like that. You see that we do have multiple winning trades and trades running for long periods of time. In terms of the risk to reward ratio, and yeah, it's really profitable to be there. But that's just my word. I think so, and some of the members that are there, they think so as well. So I don't know. All right, so everybody could be different depending on whether you get the trade or not too as well. ADP employment change looking to come down here, really off from the previous, right? So this again too, and I'm just going to show you guys a quick what it is. Higher than expected figures should be seen as positive for the US dollar, while lower than expected figures should be viewed as negative, right? And the ADP National Employment Report, non-farm private employment in the United States, is being monitored. It is developed by automatic data processing, right? And it's based on the actual payroll data from around 24 million employees. All right. So that's a brief summary as to what that is. And as you can see, a higher than expected number should be viewed bullish, while lower than expected number should be seen as negative, right? Is 188K compared to the previous nearly 500K here. So this is a really bearish number. We'll see if we actually get that. Again, for the employment change and stuff like that, these numbers are shooted. So the numbers may not come out as a consensus, but a little bit higher than that, which would cause the US dollar to move a little bullishly, right? But again, this is something that I will just have to remain and see. And I really don't want to be making too many predictive analysis on what to expect from price movement, especially when it comes to US dollar. We have been looking back and forth. We had positive numbers coming to last week market close. So with that being said and keeping that in mind, I do think that the numbers that we do have coming out right here, the consensus, right, that has been developed, it's kind of shrewd, right? Given that we have to reconsider all these other data points. We have retail sales for the AUD and trade balance as well. So this is coming up again. So this is a 10% difference, right? From 0.8% to negative 0.8%, which is really bad. So we'll have to wait and see, but it looks overall the AUD is looking pretty bearish to me. So some trades I would get involved in, actually, given like we have these certain news events coming. AUD CHF sells, AUD JPY. I think that'll be my primarily sort of trading assets, right? AUD CHF, AUD JPY from the get-go, and possibly AUD CAD. I don't want to deal with AUD USD, AUD CAD possibly to the downside as well, depending on how those US numbers do come out, right? We have CPI numbers for the Swiss franc on the Thursday, right? And again, some retail sales stuff, interest rate decision for the BOE, right? So this would affect the pound here. We also have all these other data points. Now, I did make a video on all of this. I made my weekly analysis video on the Saturday. However, with the setup that I'm using, there was a situation where the camera actually paused halfway through in the video. So it would have been hear my voice here and everything that I'm saying, but there won't be no video or any visual of me. It was just like a freeze frame. So I'm re-recording this right now here and setting it up at a later time. Now, on the previous video, I did state that on this here, as you can see, this all coming out at 7 a.m. on August 3rd. DOE monetary policy report is the thing I think we need to be paying attention mostly to, and not so much the rate, right? And also we have to be looking at the vote cut, vote on change and stuff. So we have a lot of high impacting news coming out at that exact same time, sorry, right? So the BOE monetary policy report, and this will just give you like an overall general consensus as to, okay, what you could expect moving on, where the BOE is at, the Bank of England is at right now with their monetary policy tools and what they're doing and how the economy is going and so forth, right? So this is what you'll be paying attention for future movements, or to expect, what you could expect from the pound itself, right? If it's something that is bullish in nature, then we will expect the GBP to continue moving bullish. If it's something bearish in nature as well, let's say they say inflation is coming down really nice, that means that there could be a slowing of interest rate rising, or they could be pausing that interest rate rise. So that would lead into sort of a negative movement on the pound dollar itself, right? So that is something that I think we need to take into consideration more, what is said in the monetary policy report, rather than looking at the interest rates themselves when this news data do come out, especially for continuation movements after the initial spike, whether it's up or down or whatever the case is, right? And then we have the initial jobless claims for the US. I'm not trading anything USD, so I don't really need to pay attention to this. Afterwards, we have RBA statement on monetary policy, something I need to pay attention to. And Friday, everything, the one thing we all love and hate at the same time, NFP for the US dollar. You can see here, it is a little bearish than the previous, right? So 200K compared to 209K. And for the CAD, we also have some news coming out here. Unemployment looking to rise, employment change looking to decrease. So some bearish movement for the CAD expected. All right, and this is just an overall look on the fundamentals that we do have coming up and what sort of price action we can get from that as well. We're going to take a look at now. All right, so here is my thing. Starting off with the DXY for the USD lovers and USD, traders. if you trade in the US dollar. So this is the thing. After we had those good numbers, and actually let's take a look from last week, right? So we're gonna take a look from the 23rd to 29th. Let's apply that. And we go into the USD news, USD news, USD news, USD news. All right. Okay. So, all right. Here it is on the Thursday. All right. So we have the initial jobless claims. We have continuous jobless claims. Good numbers compared to the previous. Right. We have the durable goods. We have the goods trade balance. We have GDP growth rate for the second quarter here. Taking a look at that. Right. And actually better than expected increase from 1.8% was the consensus to 2.4%. Meaning the economy is performing well. And then we have some pending home sales and yada yada, right? So for the majority, yeah, as you can see, for the ones that we really need to pay attention to, for the US dollar, we did have some very nice bullish, numbers. And with that being said, that caused the dollar to rise from this area here and spike all the way to the upside here, breaking out of this sort of initial strong downward movement that we did have, right? So from the point where price was here, coming from this high, it pushed above that level, right? Now, currently where we are at and what we're expecting to see with NFP coming out and some of the other USD numbers is one of two things that could happen here. One thing we could expect to see, again, I'm still pretty bearish on the dollar because overall we're seeing inflation coming down, all right? That means that when it comes to interest rate hike, when we have inflation coming down, it means we could see a slowing of that, right? So if you don't know what interest rates really do, by raising interest rate, you get investors being more sort of keenly wanting to invest into the US dollar, also selling bonds, stuff like that. It appreciates the value of the US dollar by raising interest rates to investors, all right, encouraging them to actually invest and put money towards the US dollar. Now, if the inflation rate is going down, right, even though that is good for the economy overall, right, because having inflation at controllable levels is what everybody wants, right, at the same time, that means that rates would decrease, right, or it would just stop for the time being and gradually decrease. So that being said, investors, and they won't be more keenly to invest into the US dollar. We could see a slowing down of that dollar growth, right? And gradually that means that the dollar starts depreciating in value here, or at least losing some of that momentum to the upside. All right. And it may be sort of I'm telling you guys this, right? Because I understand that if you're new to the fundamentals as well, it could be something that's quite hard to wrap your head around. But it may be something a little bit confusing to you. But what you need to know in general terms, when you do have interest rate rising, it is to combat high inflation, right? And when you do have inflation coming back down or inflation falling, even though it's good, it means that, all right, investors from an investing standpoint, right, you do not want to get involved in the dollar because that means that, all right, the interest rates are going to pause or it's going to start reversing to start bringing interest rates back down and so forth. All right. And the thing you need to know is that you need to watch this from an investor perspective rather than a consumer or being the person on the receiving end of it of high interest rates, meaning you have to pay more on loans and stuff like that, right? Investor wise, it makes sense to have high interest rate because that means the return you get is a lot more profitable for you. All right. So hopefully that makes sense and you get an idea as how this actually works when you're taking a look at the fundamentals and why if inflation is high, how is that good for your dollar and isn't that bad and so forth. So hopefully that makes sense and you could kind of put that in perspective in a way that's understandable for you, especially if you're new to the fundamentals. Now, as inflation decreases, we could see that turnaround in volume from what the Fed, initially is high inflation. We need to combat that. Our inflation is going down. We could slow the interest rate rising and we could actually just pause and gradually see interest rates come back down, right? Now, with that being said, I do think at this point, the dollar could lose some steam. And what I would be more keenly or in terms of the technical aspect of things, when I'll be looking to invest into selling the US dollar would be if we're able to break below this level, right? So if we're able to break below this level and start seeing some uniform formation, see downside like this, right, or start trending back down, then at that point I'll be like, all right, the next possible target for me within this downtrending movement to the downside for this week would be down here. All right, so I would stick to the US dollar weakness, or seeing that weakness on the US dollar, provided we break below this area here on the DXY. Again, the DXY is just showing you like the currency strength of the dollar itself. Now, the charts I would pay attention to would be something like Euro USD or GBP USD, right? At the points where I'll be looking to get into any USD trades would be when I'm seeing this US dollar weakness. It means you'll see a rise on those currency pairs, right? For the euro, we have some bullish news coming up, right? We have CPI and these other things that we can look at and take advantage of. So if we do have good numbers, we know that more than likely gradually we'll see the euro actually rise or appreciate in value. And so said the same thing for the GBP. If we actually have good numbers, interest rates increase, monetary policy is looking good, a lot of bullish factors or leads, that means that, okay, on the GBP US dollar cross pair, I could look for possible setups to the long side, given that the DXY showed me the US dollar is depreciating in strength currently, and we have those good news for the GBP. You have clear fundamental differences, and that way you have a clear directional bias. So hopefully that makes sense. All right. Now, for me personally, I am only going to be taking a look at the 80 cross pairs for the time being, and the major ones at that. So I'll be taking a look at 80 USD. Again, I'm more keenly on seeing the US dollar depreciate, so I don't really want to buy into this right now. And it's sort of like, you know, you have two weak currencies paired up against each other. It's just going to range or not give all that nice of a movement. All right, the thing that I'll be paying attention to more so for like a good sort of movement here, 80 CHF being one of the trades that I would like to get into possibly. So as price is dipping to the downside here, and take a look from the daily, 4 hour and the 1 hour. So you can see very strong downward trend here, very strong bearish market. Here on the daily, on the 4 hourly, we can see that, all right, we have this nice little level we could pay attention to. Price broke the downside here. We saw this sort of you know, range being created, or at least sort of consolidation right here. And in 1 hour, all right, one of two things could happen. Either price retests this area here, and then we could get that downward continuation. Again, I am looking for sell continuations, so I'm biased to the downside. This will be one trade setup I'm looking at. Or if price manages to break lower right here, I'll be looking to get into shorts as well. Now, see, we already covered the fundamentals, and the technicals just gets a lot easier to really take a look at. So again, this would all depend on what we do have coming out. Sorry, and let's just take a look at this week. So you can see a little bit of a recap here, right? So the Judo Bank Manufacturing PMI, that's one of the first things. We have the RBA interest rates looking to increase for the 80. All right. Now again, this number is kind of shooted on my end. I am expecting this to remain the same. If the actual does come out as a consensus, that's not really gonna be doing much in favor for the run of 80 CHF or the 80 on a whole to the positive side right now. Risk sentiment is one thing we need to pay attention as well. Risk off tones. So more so looking for 80 sell side biases, right? 80 JPY also really great here, and I really like the formation that we had here on 80 JPY, just because, right, the initial move that we did get on the JPY that made price go so strongly to the downside, right, or why we saw like this one spike here and then price pushed down, was because we had a rumor or a tweet, I believe, from one of the representatives from the Bank of Japan talking about what they're going to do with rates, and they're going to increase rates above 0.5% of what they usually do, right, in the short term, to help with the currency strength and whatnot, right? So with their monetary policies or whatnot that they need to do. and with that we saw that bullish move for the yen, and then we had this slight correction coming closer to the ending of the week. So right now on this pullback, obviously this is looking like a great chart to hold to the downside, right? So this is sort of like the trade setup that I would like to get involved in early on. AUD JPY sells to the downside for me, right? And that's it. Now with the CAD and the US dollar, I really want to wait until we see some sort of a pullback in this case for the AUD if possible. So we have a nice clear technical side of things, as well as lining up with the fundamentals. If we are weak on the AUD, then obviously we're going to continue with sell continuations. However, again, with the dollar right now, dollar strength is looking good. All right, it is looking good from last week leading into this week. I just think some of the numbers is what we really need to be paying attention to, how that comes out. With that being said, then at that point I'll be able to say with more sort of confidence whether I want to get involved in dollar longs or whatever the case is, right? But those are the only two things I'm watching. Something like Euro AUD, I'm not really paying attention to this right now. You can see we are in a peculiar place right now coming to the euro dollar on this particular pair, because we are in a pretty strong resistance zone, right? You can see price came in here multiple times, rejected from it. We came on the end of the week here. So at this point, it's either one, we get a rejection and a pullback down here in favor of the AUD and then a continuation movement, or maybe we might just see that continuation starting from right here, right? So it's anybody's guess for that. Another thing that I'll take a look at sort of right here, GBP JPY going to the downside. Yes, I would like to get involved in that. Again, I am favoring the yen a little bit here in terms of the clear fundamental sort of bias that I do have for this. However, for something like GBP JPY, I don't think that this is the cleanest in terms of fundamental differences, all right? Because we have bullish news going on for the GBP, and we also have the news from the yen from last week. So right now, it's a peculiar trade, trading currency right now, right? So I don't think it will give like the cleanest or the best sort of movement, especially when the fundamentals are so close in hand. So I'll be staying out of that until, you know, Monday when we are in the London sessions and, you know, we have the pre-New York session open and stuff like that. We could take little impulse movements and whatnot, and then look at a general long-term trade that we could hold on GJ. But for right now, I'm just not gonna meddle with it. I'm really trying to stick to my routine and what I've set for myself. Other than that, some of you guys, I know you guys love gold, so let's take a quick look at gold. So here for gold, right, I did have this buy setup and continuation. Now I don't trade gold, but I did send this out to the people within the Discord channel itself, where you could possibly get long on gold for this continuation to the upside. Now again, this was off of the consensus that we're going to see a bearish USD when we had all those bullish USD news, right? So this caused price to push down real strongly to the downside. This moved, let's see how much pips this moved. This moved around 358, 360 pips, right? So that's quite the movement we got in just 2 hours, right? And then you see price gradually pull back up here. Now at this point, everyone's currently is US dollar bullish right now, right? So US dollar bullishness has increased. However, we know better to focus on the fundamentals and the actual values that we do get before we decide whether we're going to be bullish on something or not. Now, if the USD remains bullish, obviously that means that gold would appreciate and fall down, or we see a movement to the downside as the US dollar recover. However, if this is the latter and well vice versa of this, right, then we see gold appreciate in value and continue to the upside. Now price did come into this level here, and this was a previous level of interest. Now if price does rise above and close bullishly, I do think we could continue and refill back up into this area here of the initial fall, right? So I do think that price could come back up here However, again, not into the whole probabilities and being unsure as to what I expect from price. Not enough certainty for me to actually get into this or anything like that. So I'll be staying away from it. But yeah, this is it's a pretty solid trade setup opportunity, right? Price pushes up here, then at that point you could go long. If price pushes down, have a strong bearish candle close, then obviously we continue seeing sell side continuations. All right. So hopefully that helps you guys in terms of trade setups that we are looking at, and that little fundamental analysis explanation does explain how inflation works and how interest rate works for you guys. Besides that, this is currently what I'm looking at, and I'm going towards, you know, trading within the VIP. And as things move and progress for the week, obviously this would change. We might have more setups than what we were initially going with, but overall I'm trying to maintain my risk management and just generally keep a good sort of overall keep a good risk management strategy going, right? So had a good week last week, could have been better. We're looking to have a good week this week again, and I hope everybody else does too. So thank you very much for joining and watching this video. Please feel free to leave a like, comment what trades are you looking at, what pairs interest you the most. I'm really interested in getting to know more of like what you guys are looking at, right? Maybe you might be seeing something that I'm not, so be sure to ask questions. All right, don't just take my word for whatever I'm saying here. Be sure to be inquisitive, ask questions. If you see something differently, then feel free to message me. I have my business email up on my YouTube as well. If you're part of the Discord, feel free to hit up the trade ideas section in the Discord and post your charts, share your analysis, and yeah, that's about it. So thank you very much for you guys for joining. Peace, love, and respect. And yeah, I'll see you guys Monday for London session, 5 a.m. All right, bye.